Hello, my name is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and these are not the droids you're looking for. What you are looking for is the meaning of objective truth, and you will find the meaning of objective truth in this video. And if you do not find the meaning of objective truth and you disagree with anything that don't disagree with anything that I'm saying. You will not disagree with anything that I am saying in this video. And if you disagree with anything that I am saying in this video, it means you are of the dark side. And if you are of the dark side, I will have my vengeance. Damn it, man. Okay, well, that almost hit me in the face. First off, you're welcome. Second off, objective truth. That's what we're talking about. And I'm going to keep this tool bag of a sleeveless hoodie on because I like it. So today we are going to continue this conversation of truth and the philosophy of truth. As a lot of you know, I did a series on the philosophy of truth. If you haven't seen that, check it out. Click up here. And now I'm just sharing my afterthoughts on the difference between subjective truth and objective truth. On my last vlog, I talked about subjective truth and the importance of it. And now I'm talking about objective truth. And yes, I do think there exists both subjective truth and objective truth. And an example of something I want to use to describe what objective truth is, I mean, basically it's the way in which the world works. It's the way in which the world actually is, the way in which things actually are, beyond just interpretation of it. Now, people can interpret? God, here we go. Now, people can interpret things that are objective in nature differently, but that doesn't mean just because you interpret it differently or you perceive it differently or you believe something else than what the world shows, that doesn't mean that that is the truth. And honestly, that wouldn't even be a subjective truth. That would just be believing a lie. But what I view as subjective truth, like I said, is the way in which the world actually is. And I think to know the way in which the world actually is basically, that's science, that's physics, that's biology. And so an example of this, I mentioned Einstein in my last vlog on the subjective truth vlog that I did. And so I'm bringing up Einstein again with his equation E equals mc squared. That on a global scale through the scientific method has been proven time and time and time again. So, I mean, most of the technology that we have today is, I mean, a lot of it, just over the last 100 years, has come into what it is today because of that equation. I bring that up also because of Einstein's theory of relativity, specifically more talking about time and space. He basically, in a sense, figured out a lot of what goes on with space and time, calling it space-time, gravity, how they relate, how they affect each other. He figured out a lot of that. And so not only has the scientific method proven these things, but also the equation, the mathematics of it, all of it, it makes sense. Yet, we do not understand it. Yet, we see, okay, this is how time actually works. This is what time actually is. Yet our human perspective, how we perceive time, is not what science says time is. So that's one of those situations where there is an objective truth in science, in the way that the world and the universe actually works. But we as human beings are not able to step outside of our that's like the second time I tried to run through that statement. Let me try this again. We are not willing to step out of our subjective, there we go, perspective of how we see time, just because of how we've been trained to think, how we've been brought, I mean, a number of things, nature versus nurture, all that. Because of all that, we cannot understand how time actually, like time, I mean, some people question, is time even a thing? But we know it has everything to do with the universe. So what is that? I mean, so basically people take this objective fact about the universe, and then there's multiple philosophies about time. There's multiple theories about time. And so that's one of those things where we are not even able to grasp and understand that solid objective truth. And so people come up with their own subjective interpretation of it. Now, that interpretation isn't necessarily true. That's one of those situations where it's possible, and in that situation, it is the case where there could be a proposition of truth saying this is the absolute truth that hasn't even been brought up yet, and it could actually replace E equals mc squared. And that's basically what Stephen Hawking tried to do with finding the theory of everything. It wouldn't necessarily replace E equals mc squared. It would just be an upgrade, just like E equals mc squared, theory of relativity didn't replace Newtonian mechanics and how gravity works. It just built upon that. So it would be the same thing. So I think in regards to truth about the world around us, things that we don't even understand yet, are things that make sense, but it's just our interpretation is kind of, we don't like what's going on. This is the way in which we can attempt to understand it. It's like those objective truths haven't even been discovered yet. That doesn't mean they don't exist. They just haven't even been discovered yet. So yes, objective truth exists in biology, in science, in nature, and I think that it's really a grounding point. That when we are unsure about our subjective truths, that if we go back to the objective reality of science, physics, biology, and just the sciences, then we can get help me. Then we can get grounded again. And I remember the other night, a lot of you know that I've struggled with a lot of fear, anxiety, panic, all that sort of thing. The other night, I was actually thinking a lot about the philosophy of truth and a couple other things, and I started to have a minor anxiety attack. I'm laughing, but it was kind of a serious matter. So the way in which I actually calmed down and I found my grounding again is I thought about science. I thought about physics and everything that I've studied and the way that the world actually is. I'm like, okay, there is some sort of base level. There is some sort of grounding for truth. And obviously there's subjective truth. And if you haven't seen my vlog on that, then check it out. Another link up here. But we can't really, we can know subjective truth, but subjective truth on its own without the acknowledgement of objective truth, the way that the world actually is also a very dangerous place to be. Because that means even with these objective truths in science that have been proven through the scientific method time and time and time again, are open to our interpretation and what we believe is truth and what we believe trumps that. And that's just not the case at all. So yes, objective truth does exist. The question is, can these things of objective truth be proven through the scientific method, be for sure like this is truth, with not science, biology and physics and the way that the world is and the way that the world mechanically operates. But can it be done? Can objective truth be found in philosophy, in psychology, in sociology? Sociology? I think that's right. Did I just make that word up? I don't think I did. I'm pretty sure. Oh, God, did I? I don't, what? It is an actual word. Whatever, I'm pretty sure it's a word. But can we find objective truth in these things that are incredibly subjective? If we can't, I think that's okay, because I think there is a point to subjective truth. But if we can, a lot of things would change. And I don't know if we ever will, because in order for that to happen, in order for humanity to come up with a objective truth in regards to psychology and philosophy and religion and whether or not there's a God, it would mean that we would have to agree. Now it's easy to agree with science because science is science. You almost take the emotion out of it. Like whenever there's talk about science, you take the emotion out of it, which is funny because like I talked about on the last vlog, scientists are humans. Like they have emotions. They rationally do these experiments out of rationality, but there's some sort of emotional, input to them. So anyway, but we take the emotion out of science because it's like, okay, this has been proven through the scientific method time and time and time again. But the reality is, of the scientific method, is one of those scientists did an experiment that happened to turn out the way that it was. So obviously, out of one scientific experiment, like well, who's to say that's the case for everybody? Until a number of qualified scientists do this experiment and come up with the same result. Now, that's essentially what the scientific method is. My question is, can we do that as humans to things like philosophy, psychology, religion? Does God exist? And all that. If we test it out of the scientific method, coming up with our own subjective experience and then comparing it to what we see at large with people who have good I mean, and this gets into other stuff, because you got to have somebody who has good character, who is not a liar, who, I mean, you can trust. And it's like, how do we do that? Which is why it's difficult, which is why it's not easy. But can humanity get to a point of trusting humanity, of saying, you know what, this is something that has been done and that has been seen over and over and over again, so this must be how that concept works? Like something with love and relationships. And I mean, these are how a lot of those things like psychology and things come to be. It's because people see patterns, but can this pattern be caught and something subjective be given to, like, this is truth objectively through a scientific method in a philosophical sense? What do you think? So that'll be an interesting conversation down in the comments. So all that to say, guys, there is objective truth, and there is a reason for it, and it is a necessity. It helps ground us. It helps give us a starting point, and objective truth does exist. If not in philosophy and religion and psychology and all those other things having to do with the human brain and body, then it's in science, it's in physics, it's in biology. There are objective truths out there, and I think that they are, got that one out, and I think that they are a starting point for finding truth. But we got to start somewhere. And some people start with subjective truth, other people start with objective truth. But what do you start with? What do you think? Love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. And if you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you misfits in the next one. Peace!